Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Checkout Line. Carol Anderson had learned to read people in his 15 years managing risk assessment for Fortune 500 companies. The trembling hands, the downcast eyes, the way someone's shoulders collapsed when their credit card declined. He saw it all from his position in line at Rosewood Market, 3 items in his basket, watching the elderly woman ahead of him fumble through her purse with increasing desperation. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the cashier, her voice papery thin. "I could have sworn I transferred the funds. Let me just—" "Ma'am," the cashier said, not unkindly, but with the efficient tone of someone who'd seen this play out before. Carol stepped forward. "I'll cover it." The woman turned, and something flickered across her weathered face. Recognition, perhaps, or surprise. She had gray-green eyes that seemed to hold entire histories in their depths. "Young man, that's not necessary." "It's $40, Carol said, already handing his card to the cashier. "We all have tough days." "You have your mother's kindness," she said softly, and smiled with such warmth that Carol felt something crack in his chest. She didn't clarify which mother, didn't elaborate, just gathered her bags with trembling hands. "Wait," Carol said, but she was already shuffling toward the automatic doors, moving with the careful deliberation of someone whose body had begun betraying them. He watched her disappear into the October evening, that strange comment echoing in his mind. Your mother's kindness. His mother, Patricia Anderson, had been dead for 6 years. Cervical cancer, and she'd been about as kind as a steel trap. Efficient, yes. Organized, certainly. But kind? That wasn't a word Carol associated with the woman who'd raised him with military precision and emotional distance. He drove home to the Colonial in Rosewood Heights, the neighborhood where success lived behind manicured lawns and the appearance of perfect marriages. The house was dark when he pulled into the driveway at 7:47 p.m. Brittany's Lexus was gone. Carol sat in his car for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, and pulled out his phone. No messages. No missed calls. 3 nights this week, she'd been working late at her boutique marketing firm. 3 nights of coming home to an empty house and dinner alone. He'd met Brittany Hagan 5 years ago at an industry conference in Chicago. She'd been magnetic, blonde, beautiful, with a laugh that could light up a room, and ambition that matched his own. They'd married after a whirlwind 9-month courtship. For the first 2 years, it had been good. Better than good. But lately, Carol shook his head and grabbed his groceries. No point dwelling on things he couldn't control. That's what his therapist, Dr. Reeves, kept telling him. Focus on what you can control. Inside, he microwaved leftovers and opened his laptop to review the Consolidated Industries assessment he'd been working on. Numbers were comfortable, predictable. Unlike people, they didn't lie unless someone made them lie, and Carol had gotten very good at spotting manipulated data. His phone buzzed at 9:33 p.m. Brittany, working late again. Don't wait up. Love you. Carol stared at the message. 3 words at the end that felt like an obligation rather than a declaration. He typed back, be safe. See you in the morning. He fell asleep on the couch watching financial news and woke to his phone ringing at 6:47 a.m. Unknown number. Carol Anderson? A man's voice, professionally modulated. Speaking. "This is Felix Lambert, attorney at law. I'm calling regarding Geraldine Adams. I'm very sorry to inform you that she passed away last night. You're listed as a beneficiary in her will." Carol sat up, fully awake now. "I'm sorry, who?" "Geraldine Adams. She specified that you'd met yesterday at Rosewood Market. She was quite insistent that we contact you immediately upon her passing." The elderly woman, the one he'd helped. How old is she? What happened? "Natural causes. She'd been ill for some time." Felix Lambert's voice softened slightly. "Mr. Anderson, this is unusual, but she left specific instructions. Could you meet me at my office today? There are matters that require immediate attention." Chapter 2, The Letter. Felix Lambert's office occupied the corner suite of a glass tower downtown, the kind of place where wealthy people handled the complex machinery of their wealth. Carol had taken a personal day, the first in 8 months, and now sat across from a man in his 60s with silver hair and the bearing of someone who'd witnessed countless family secrets. "Before we begin," Felix said, sliding a sealed envelope across the mahogany desk, "Geraldine wanted you to read this. In private, if you prefer." Carol stared at the cream-colored envelope. His name was written in elegant, shaking script across the front. "I don't understand. I'd never met her before yesterday. Perhaps the letter will clarify." Felix stood. "I'll give you a moment." Alone in the office, Carol opened the envelope with fingers that had begun to shake. The letter inside was 2 pages, the handwriting growing progressively less steady as it went on. "Dear Carol, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The doctors gave me 2 months, but I knew it would be less. The heart always knows. I've watched you from a distance for 34 years. Every birthday, every achievement, every moment I couldn't be there for. I gave you up when you were 3 days old because I was 17, terrified, and convinced you deserved better than what I could provide. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being your mother. I saw your picture in the business journal last year, Rising Stars in Risk Assessment, and my heart recognized you before my mind did. You have your father's build, his serious eyes, but my smile. Or at least, you have the smile I used to have before life carved it away. Yesterday at the store was no accident. I've been going there every Tuesday for 3 months, hoping to see you. When my car declined, I may have arranged that. I wanted to see what kind of man you'd become. You didn't hesitate. You were kind without expectation of return. That's rare. The money I'm leaving you, it's substantial. I built a small company into something significant over the past 30 years. I had nothing else to live for, really, except building something I could one day give to you. But there's something else you need to know, and I'm dying before I can tell you properly. Your birth certificate, the one you've never seen, it lists my name. But more importantly, it lists your father's name. Patricia and Robert Anderson adopted you through a private arrangement. They promised to tell you the truth when you turn 18, but they never did they? Your father is alive, Carol, and he's closer than you think. Be careful who you trust. I've been watching not just you, but those around you. Love doesn't always show its true face. With all my heart, Geraldine Adams, your first mother. Carol read it 3 times. His hands weren't shaking anymore. They'd gone completely still, the way they always did when he was processing information that would change everything. Felix returned, perhaps alerted by some silent timer. "You've read it. I was adopted." Carol's voice came out flat. "My parents, the Andersons, they never told me. I have your original birth certificate here." Felix produced a sealed document from his desk drawer, along with the will and other relevant documents. The estate is valued at approximately $200 million. It includes her company, Adams Consulting Group, Pharmaceutical Research Analytics, along with various properties and investments. $200 million. The number was so large it felt abstract. Carol opened the birth certificate with steady hands. Mother, Geraldine Marie Adams' father, Sean Robert Bishop. The room tilted. Carol gripped the edge of the desk. "Mr. Anderson?" Felix's voice came from very far away. Sean Bishop, his former business partner. The man who'd helped him start his consulting firm 8 years ago. The man who'd been the best man at his wedding. The man who'd been noticeably absent from his life for the past 6 months after a disagreement about company direction led to Sean selling his shares and walking away. Sean Bishop was his father. Carol stood, then sat back down. "I need a minute." "Of course. May I get you some water?" "Coffee. Black. Strong." While Felix busied himself at a sidebar coffee station, Carol's mind raced through implications and connections. Sean had introduced him to Brittany. They'd met at that conference, yes, but Sean had been the one to specifically suggest Carol attend that particular panel where Brittany was speaking. Sean had encouraged the relationship, been enthusiastic about the engagement. How much had Sean known? How long had he known? "There's one more thing," Felix said, returning with coffee in a porcelain cup. "Geraldine hired a private investigator 6 months ago. She was concerned about certain people in your life. The report is included in your inheritance packet. She wanted you to have all the information before you made any decisions about the estate." Felix placed a manila folder on the desk. It was thick, at least 100 pages. Take your time, Mr. Anderson. This is a great deal to process. The inheritance is legally yours. There's no contest, no conditions except one. You must read everything before you accept or decline. Those were Geraldine's specific instructions. Chapter 3. Evidence and Shadows. Carol didn't go home. He went to his office, locked himself in his corner room, and began reading the investigator's report. By page 30, his coffee had gone cold. By page 60, he'd stopped feeling surprise. By page 90, he'd started planning. The investigator, a woman named Donna Carpenter with 20 years in law enforcement, had been thorough. Photographs, phone records, financial transactions, meeting logs, text message screenshots. It was a masterclass in surveillance, and the story it told made Carol's blood run cold. Brittany and Sean had been meeting regularly for the past 8 months. Not just meeting. The photographs showed them leaving hotels together, dining at restaurants 40 miles outside Rosewood, their body language telling a story that didn't require captions. But it was deeper than a simple affair. Financial records showed Sean had been funneling money to Brittany's business, $50,000 3 months ago, another $75,000 5 weeks ago. Bank statements showed Brittany had increased her life insurance policy on Carol from $500,000 to $2 million 6 months ago. The report included transcripts from a listening device Donna had planted in Brittany's car. Carol recognized the legal gray area there, possibly even illegal, but he kept reading. Brittany, when do you think she'll die? Sean, doctor said weeks, not months. Then we just need to be patient a little longer. Brittany, I'm tired of being patient. I'm tired of pretending with him. Sean, it'll be worth it. $200 million is worth playing house for a few more months. Once she's dead and he inherits, we wait 6 months. Then you file for divorce. California's a community property state. You'll get half of everything. We'll finally be together, and Carol will never know I'm his father. Brittany, unless she told him. Sean, she won't. She gave him up. She's got too much shame to face him now. But Geraldine had told him, or tried to, and now Carol sat with evidence of a conspiracy that made his chest ache with a hollow feeling that might have been grief or rage or both. His phone buzzed. Brittany, home early tonight. Let's have dinner. I miss you. Carol stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, Perfect. I'll cook. Be home by 7. He spent the rest of the afternoon making careful phone calls. First to Donna Carpenter, whose number was in the report. Mr. Anderson, she said when she answered. I'm sorry for your loss. Did you know her well? Well enough to know she loved you more than anything in this world. She hired me to protect you. Can you still help me? A pause. What do you need? Justice. And I'm willing to pay whatever it takes. With Geraldine gone, I'm no longer under retainer. But I'll help you pro bono. She was a good woman. What they're planning. Donna's voice hardened. Yeah, I'll help. Next, Carol called Tyler Fry, his only real friend from college and the one person in his life who'd never had an agenda. Tyler worked as a cybersecurity consultant and, more importantly, had a flexible moral compass when it came to electronic surveillance. I need your help, Carol said, and it's probably illegal. Best way to start a Tuesday, Tyler replied. What's the play? By 6:30 p.m., Carol was home, preparing dinner with the mechanical precision of someone going through familiar motions. Chicken marsala, Brittany's favorite. Salad with that specific balsamic dressing she liked. Wine breathing on the counter. A $200 bottle from their wedding that he'd been saving for a special occasion. This qualified. Brittany arrived at 7:04, perfectly put together in her designer business casual, her blonde hair in the artfully messy style that probably took 30 minutes to achieve. Something smells amazing, she said, kissing his cheek. The kiss felt like a practiced gesture, warm enough to seem genuine, but empty of actual affection. How had he not noticed before? Or had he noticed and chosen not to see? How was work? Carol asked, plating the food. Exhausting. New client. Lots of demands. She accepted the wine glass he handed her. How was your day? Interesting, actually. Got a call from a lawyer. Apparently, I've inherited some money. Brittany froze for just a fraction of a second, her wine glass halfway to her lips. Really? From who? An old woman I helped at the grocery store yesterday. Turns out she was wealthy. Left me everything. Wow. That's incredible. How much? Carol watched her face carefully. Her pupils had dilated slightly. Her breathing had quickened. She was excited, but trying to hide it. The lawyer said it's complicated. Trusts, properties, that kind of thing. Could be substantial, but it'll take months to sort out. Well, Brittany said, raising her glass, to unexpected fortunes. They clinked glasses. Carol took a small sip. Brittany drank deeper. Over dinner, she was animated in a way she hadn't been in months, asking questions about the inheritance, about the lawyer, about timelines. Carol fed her carefully curated information, enough to seem forthcoming, not enough to reveal he knew everything. There's one weird thing, he said, pushing food around his plate. The lawyer mentioned something about my birth certificate. Apparently, my parents never told me something important about my adoption. Brittany went very still. Your adoption? I didn't know either. Turns out Patricia and Robert Anderson weren't my biological parents. I was adopted as an infant. Carol washed her face. The lawyer said my biological father is alive. Someone I apparently know. Brittany's knuckles were white on her fork. That's insane. Do they know who? The lawyer's looking into it. Said he'll have answers next week. Brittany excused herself to the bathroom shortly after. Through the baby monitor system Tyler had helped him activate earlier. It was nominally for the future children they discussed, but never pursued. Carol heard her make a phone call. We have a problem, she hissed. He knows about the adoption. Lambert might have told him about you. Sean's voice was tinny through the speaker, but clear enough. Calm down. Even if he knows I'm his father, he doesn't know about us. Just stick to the plan. I don't like this, Sean. 6 more months, baby. Then we're set for life. Just keep him happy a little longer. Carol sat at the dinner table, listening to his wife conspire with his father, and felt something cold and sharp crystallize in his chest. Not anger. Anger was hot and impulsive. This was calculated, methodical. When Brittany returned, her smile was back in place. Sorry, work call. Where were we? Talking about the future, Carol said, and poured her more wine. Chapter 4. The Trap Sets. Carol spent the next 2 weeks becoming someone he didn't entirely recognize. On the surface, he was the devoted husband, the curious but not suspicious son, the grateful heir. Beneath that, he was a chess player moving pieces into position. He accepted the inheritance formally, signing papers in Felix Lambert's office while the lawyer watched with sharp, knowing eyes. Geraldine wanted you to have everything you need, Felix said, including the truth. Did you know Sean Bishop was my father when you called me? I knew. Geraldine told me everything. Felix leaned back in his chair. She also told me she suspected your wife and Mr. Bishop were involved. She hoped she was wrong. She wasn't. No, Felix agreed quietly. I don't suppose she was. What will you do? Carol had considered this question from every angle. Report them to the police? Brittany and Sean hadn't actually committed a crime yet. Planning to take money in a divorce wasn't illegal. The affair was morally reprehensible, but not criminal. And the overheard conversations? Inadmissible without their consent to be recorded. No, the law wouldn't give him justice. He'd have to create it himself. I'm going to let them think they're winning, Carol said, right up until they realize they've lost everything. Felix studied him for a long moment. Geraldine said you had your father's mind for strategy. She meant that as a warning, I think. Sean Bishop is dangerous precisely because he's smart. Then it's a good thing I'm smarter. At home, Carol played his role perfectly. He discussed the inheritance with Brittany in carefully measured doses. The company was worth millions. There were properties, investment portfolios. It would take time to liquidate everything, but yes, it was substantial. Life-changing. Brittany's eyes gleamed with each revelation. She became more affectionate, more present. She even suggested they start trying for children soon, now that we're financially secure. The suggestion made Carol's stomach turn. Meanwhile, with Tyler's help, Carol installed monitoring software on Brittany's phone and laptop. Not through physical access. That was too risky, but through a phishing email disguised as a notification from her bank. She clicked the link without hesitation, and suddenly Carol could see every text, every call, every email. The messages to Sean were damning in their intimacy and their calculation. Brittany to Sean, he signed everything. The money is officially his. 6 months, and it's ours. Sean to Brittany, told you to be patient. My son always was predictable. Smart about business, clueless about people. Brittany to Sean, I almost feel bad. He's being so sweet lately. Sean to Brittany, don't go soft on me now. Remember what's waiting for us. Just keep playing the role. Donna Carpenter had been busy too. At Carol's request, she dug deeper into Sean's background, and what she found painted a picture of a man who'd made manipulation a lifestyle. He has 2 ex-wives. Donna explained during a meeting at a coffee shop 15 miles from Rosewood. Both divorced him for infidelity. Both walked away with settlements that were suspiciously small given Sean's wealth. I interviewed the first one. She was scared, wouldn't talk much, but she said Sean had leverage that made her accept less than she deserved. What kind of leverage? She wouldn't specify, but I'd bet on some form of blackmail. Sean Bishop is the kind of man who collects secrets like insurance policies. Donna slid a folder across the table. But here's where it gets interesting. 6 months before you married Brittany, Sean took out a $5 million life insurance policy on himself, with Brittany listed as sole beneficiary. Carol processed this. They were planning this from the beginning. Looks like it. I also found that Brittany's marketing firm is on the verge of bankruptcy. Has been for 2 years. She's in debt up to her eyeballs, credit cards maxed, personal loans outstanding. She needed money desperately. Then suddenly, she meets you. And suddenly Sean sells his shares in your company for cash right before marrying you. Almost like he needed liquid assets for something. For her, Carol said, he's been funding her life, keeping her afloat until I inherited. Exactly. But here's the thing. If Sean's on the hook for Brittany's debts, and she divorces you and gets half your money, he can recover everything he's invested in her and more. It's a long con, Mr. Anderson. And you were the mark from the day you were born. That night, Carol sat in his home office, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, and made his plan. It would need to be intricate, legal enough to avoid criminal charges against himself, devastating enough to destroy both Brittany and Sean completely. He called a number Felix Lambert had provided, a forensic accountant named Ramon Hancock, who specialized in creative financial structures. I need to create a trust, Carol said. Something that looks simple but has teeth. I'm listening, Ramon replied. Chapter 5, Gathering Allies. The inheritance had made Carol wealthy beyond anything he'd imagined, but wealth without strategy was just numbers in an account. Over the next month, he assembled his team with the precision of a general preparing for war. Donna Carpenter became his eyes and ears. She continued surveillance on Brittany and Sean, documenting their meetings, their communications, building a comprehensive picture of their relationship and their plans. Tyler Fry handled the technical side. He'd created a ghost network that allowed Carol to monitor not just Brittany's communications, but also Sean's. The older man was careful, but not careful enough. His text to Brittany revealed a man who viewed his son as nothing more than a genetic accident and a convenient means to wealth. Sean to Brittany, tell him you're pregnant. That'll lock him in emotionally. Doesn't matter if it's true. Miscarriages happen all the time. Brittany to Sean, that feels too cruel. Sean to Brittany, are you in this or not? Because if you're having second thoughts, I can find someone else. Brittany to Sean, I'm in. I'll do it. Carol read that exchange 3 times, each reading hardening something in his chest. When Brittany came to him 2 days later with tears in her eyes and news of a pregnancy that didn't exist, he played his part. Joy, excitement, promises of being a great father. He took her to dinner, bought her flowers, started talking about baby names and nursery colors. And all the while, he was building his trap. Ramon Hancock had been invaluable in structuring the inheritance into a complex web of trusts and corporate entities. On paper, Carol was wealthy. In reality, the bulk of the money sat in an irrevocable trust that couldn't be touched by divorce proceedings. This is the Greenberg Trust strategy, Ramon explained during a late-night meeting in Carol's office. Named after a 1983 case where a hedge fund manager protected his assets from his third wife. The money flows through a series of offshore accounts and shell corporations, all perfectly legal, but structured in a way that makes them divorce-proof. If Brittany files for divorce, she'll get half of your apparent assets, which will amount to maybe $5 million, and the other $195 million? Protected, untouchable. It'll look like bad luck, market downturns, poor investments, whatever story we want to tell. Ramon grinned. The beauty is it's all legal. Ethically questionable, perhaps, but legal. But Carol wanted more than financial protection. He wanted exposure, ruin, the kind of public destruction that would ensure Brittany and Sean could never do to anyone else what they'd try to do to him. For that, he needed leverage of his own. He found it in an unlikely place. Sean's business dealings. Donna had discovered that Sean's current company, Bishop Strategic Solutions, had several clients with questionable ethics. One in particular caught Carol's attention. Meridian Pharmaceuticals, a company currently under investigation for Medicare fraud. Carol had Donna dig deeper. She found evidence that Sean had been helping Meridian hide assets and manipulate billing records. Nothing explicit in writing, but enough circumstantial evidence that the right prosecutor would be interested. Then there was Brittany's fake pregnancy. With Tyler's help, Carol had been documenting every conversation about the baby. Every lie she told about doctor's appointments she never attended. Every symptom she manufactured. It wasn't illegal to fake a pregnancy to your husband, but it was revealing. Character evidence for when things went public. You're building a nuclear bomb, Tyler observed one evening as they reviewed the evidence. You know that, right? When you detonate this, it's going to be scorched earth. Good, Carol said flatly. They were planning to take everything from me. They deserve nothing less. Tyler was quiet for a moment. I've known you since freshman year. I've seen you handle corporate crises, negotiate million-dollar deals, stay calm when everything was falling apart. But this is different. Are you sure you want to go this dark? Carol thought about Geraldine, a woman he'd barely known, but who'd loved him enough to spend 30 years watching from afar. He thought about his childhood, raised by the cold and distant Andersons while his real mother suffered in silence. He thought about Brittany's fake tears about a fake pregnancy, Sean's casual cruelty in text messages about his own son. I'm sure, he said. They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. The plan was coming together. But Carol needed one more piece, a witness to Sean's confession, something that would tie everything together and make the betrayal undeniable. He found his opportunity when Sean reached out after 8 months of silence. The text came in late on a Tuesday night. Sean, we should talk. About your mother. Geraldine, I think it's time you knew the truth. Carol stared at the message, his heart rate eerily calm. This was it. Sean was going to reveal himself as Carol's father, probably to build false rapport, maybe to position himself for a share of the inheritance. Carol, tomorrow. My office. Noon. Sean, see you there, son. That last word made Carol's jaw clench, but he kept his response simple. Carol, looking forward to it. Chapter 6. The confrontation begins. Sean Bishop arrived at Carol's office exactly at noon, dressed in the expensive casual way that marked him as successful without trying too hard. He was 58 but looked younger, with silver at his temples that made him look distinguished rather than old. Carol could see hints of his own features in the older man's face. The same strong jaw, the same intense eyes. How had he never noticed before? Carol. Sean extended his hand. It's been too long. Carol shook it, feeling the firm grip that businessmen use to assert dominance. Coffee, please. While Carol busied himself at the coffee station in his office, Tyler's voice crackled in his nearly invisible earpiece. Recording is live. Multiple angles. Audio is clear. Carol had turned his office into a surveillance studio. 3 hidden cameras. Directional microphones. All feeding to secure servers that Tyler monitored remotely. Everything that was about to happen would be documented from multiple angles. I'm glad you reached out, Carol said, handing Sean a cup. I've had questions. I imagine you do. Sean settled into the leather chair across from Carol's desk. Geraldine's death must have been a shock. Less of a shock than finding out I was adopted. Carol kept his voice neutral, or that my biological father has been in my life all along. Sean's expression shifted, surprise, followed by something that might have been respect. Felix told you. Geraldine told me. In a letter. Felix just confirmed it. Carol leaned back in his chair. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because I was 17 when Geraldine got pregnant. Sean's voice took on a rehearsed quality, like he'd practiced this speech. I was a stupid kid. My parents arranged the adoption, paid Geraldine off, and I went to college like nothing happened. By the time I was old enough to have regrets, you were already 10 years old with parents who loved you. What was I supposed to do? Disrupt your life to satisfy my guilt. It was a good speech. Almost believable. But Carol had read Geraldine's medical records. She'd been 19 when she got pregnant, working 2 jobs to support herself. Sean had been 23, already in graduate school. The age difference might have been legal, but the power dynamic wasn't. So, you've been watching me from a distance? Carol asked. In a way, when you started your consulting firm, I saw an opportunity to finally be part of your life, even if you didn't know the truth. So I invested. Sean smiled. You're brilliant, Carol. Everything I hoped you'd be. And Brittany? Something flickered across Sean's face. What about her? How did you two know each other before she met me? Because you introduced us. But I'm realizing now you must have known her before that conference. Networking circles. Her firm did some work for one of my clients. The lie came smoothly, but Carol saw the calculation behind Sean's eyes. Interesting, because I've been going through some of Geraldine's papers, and she hired a private investigator before she died. Apparently, she was worried about people in my life. Carol opened his desk drawer and pulled out a thin folder. Not the full report, just selected pages. According to this investigator, you and Brittany have been meeting regularly. Hotels, restaurants, long lunches. The investigator seemed to think it was an affair. Sean's face remained calm, but his knuckles whitened on the armrest. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because the investigator has photographs, dates and times, financial records showing you've given Brittany over $125,000 in the past year. Carol slid 3 photos across the desk. They showed Sean and Brittany outside a hotel in Riverside, Brittany's hand on Sean's chest, his arm around her waist. That doesn't look like a professional relationship. Carol, is she pregnant? Carol asked, his voice deadly quiet. Really pregnant? Or is that just part of the plan? Sean stood abruptly. I don't know what you think you know. I know you've been sleeping with my wife. I know you've been funding her failing business. I know you planned to wait until I inherited Geraldine's money, then have Brittany divorce me for half. Carol's voice remained level, almost conversational. What I'm trying to figure out is whether you did this because I'm your son or in spite of it. You have no idea what you're talking about. Sit down, Sean. Fuck you. I'm leaving. Sit down. Something in Carol's voice made Sean freeze. Because if you leave now, I go to the police with everything I have. The affair, the financial manipulation, and more importantly, your involvement with Meridian Pharmaceuticals and their Medicare fraud scheme. Sean's face went pale. You're bluffing. Donna Carpenter is very thorough. She found records of your meetings with Meridian executives, emails discussing creative accounting strategies. Enough to interest the FBI. Carol leaned forward. But here's the thing. I don't want to go to the police. I want the truth. So sit down and tell me everything, and maybe we can work something out. Sean sat, but his expression had hardened. What do you want? I want to know when you decided to destroy me. Was it always the plan? From the moment you realized I existed? For a long moment, Sean said nothing. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. You really want the truth? I do. Fine. Yes, it was the plan. Not from birth. I didn't give a shit about you as a kid. But when Geraldine's company started taking off 15 years ago, I looked into what she'd done with the baby. Found out she'd given you up. Found out the Andersons had raised you. I kept tabs on you casually, more curious than anything. Sean's smile was cold. Then 5 years ago, Geraldine got sick. Pancreatic cancer the first time. They caught it early, but we all knew it would come back. And I realized she was going to leave everything to you. Millions. Maybe tens of millions. So I started planning. You introduced me to Brittany. I introduced you to a woman who desperately needed money and was willing to do anything to get it. She's in debt up to her fucking eyeballs, Carol. Failed business, max credit cards. She was about to lose everything. I offered her a way out. Marry you, wait for you to inherit, divorce you, take half. We split everything 50-50. And the fake pregnancy? My idea. Makes you less likely to question things, more emotionally invested. Classic manipulation. Sean leaned back, his confidence returning. You want to know the real kicker? You were so easy to manipulate. So desperate for approval, for connection. Your adopted parents did a number on you, didn't they? Cold, distant Patricia and boring Robert. You were starving for affection, and Brittany gave you just enough to keep you hooked. Carol felt nothing listening to this. The words should have hurt, but they bounced off the ice that had formed around his heart weeks ago. And you feel no guilt about this? Guilt? Sean laughed again. Why would I? You're nothing to me. A DNA accident. You think fatherhood means something just because I contributed sperm 34 years ago? You were a mistake then, and you're a means to an end now. That's all you've ever been. I see. Carol nodded slowly. Thank you for your honesty. So what now? You go to the police with your investigator's report? Good luck proving anything. It's all circumstantial. Brittany and I are careful. Not careful enough. Carol pressed a button on his desk, and the large monitor on his wall flickered to life. It showed a split screen, 3 angles of their current conversation, complete with timestamp and audio. Sean's face drained of color. You're recording this? Every word. Multiple cameras, professional audio. And before you start threatening legal action, we're in a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of. Carol smiled, and it was not a kind expression. You just confessed to conspiracy to commit fraud, to an extramarital affair with my wife, and to planning to take money through false pretenses. All on camera. You son of a bitch. Actually, I'm your son. You set yourself, biologically, anyway. Carol stood. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my office. You're going to call Brittany and tell her the plan is off. And you're both going to disappear from my life forever. Or what? Or I destroy you both so completely you'll wish you'd never heard my name. Sean stared at him, and Carol saw the moment the older man realized he'd lost. But instead of defeat, Carol saw rage. You think you're so smart. You think you've won. I have won. Not yet. Sean stood, moving toward the door. You're forgetting something, Carol. Brittany's still your wife. You still love her, whether you want to admit it or not. And love makes people do stupid things. Give it a few days and you'll soften. You'll want to forgive her. You'll convince yourself there's something worth saving. You don't know me at all. I know you better than you think. You're weak. You always have been. That's why this was so easy. Sean opened the door. This isn't over. Yes, Carol said quietly. It is. After Sean left, Tyler's voice came through the earpiece. Holy shit. Did that actually just happen? Every word documented. Multiple angles, perfect audio. This is enough to ruin him. Good. Carol sat back down at his desk. Now we move to phase 2. Chapter 7. The Wife's Move. Brittany came home that evening earlier than usual, her face a careful mask of concern. She'd heard from Sean. Carol knew because Tyler had been monitoring her phone. The messages had been panicked. Sean, he knows everything. Recording devices in his office. I told him too much. Brittany, what do I do? Sean, deny everything. Act shocked. Play the victim. It's your only chance. Brittany, I can't do this anymore. Sean, you want to go to jail for fraud? Because that's where we're both headed if you don't stick to the script. Now she stood in their kitchen, designer bag on the counter, heels kicked off, looking every bit the exhausted career woman coming home to her husband. Hey, she said softly. Rough day. You could say that. Carol was making dinner, salmon and asparagus, her other favorite. Sean came by the office. He watched her face carefully. The micro-expressions he'd learned to read in his years doing risk assessment. The slight widening of her eyes. The tensing of her jaw. The way her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, where a fake baby supposedly grew. Really? I thought you two weren't speaking. We weren't. He wanted to talk about my inheritance. Apparently, He has some concerns about how I'm handling the money. Carol plated the salmon. He also said some interesting things about you. About me? Brittany's voice climbed slightly, and Carol heard the fear beneath the confusion. He claims you're having an affair with him, that you've been planning to take half my money in a divorce. Carol set the plates on the table. Obviously, I told him he was insane. Brittany's relief was palpable. She laughed. It almost sounded genuine. That's crazy. Why would he say something like that? I don't know. Maybe he's jealous of the inheritance. Maybe he's having some kind of breakdown. Carol pulled out her chair. But it did make me think. We should probably get ahead of this, legally speaking. If Sean's going to spread rumors about an affair, we should protect ourselves. Protect ourselves how? I talked to Felix Lambert. He suggested a post-nuptial agreement. Just to make it clear that you're entitled to what's yours, and I'm entitled to what's mine. So if anyone tries to cause problems, we have legal protection. Carol smiled at her. It's just a formality, but it would make me feel better, especially with the baby coming. Brittany sat down slowly. A post-nup? Those are for couples who don't trust each other, or for couples protecting themselves from outside interference. Sean's already proven he's willing to lie. Who knows what he'll do next? Carol took her hand across the table. I want to protect you, Brittany, and our baby. This ensures that no matter what happens, you're taken care of. It was a masterful lie, and Carol delivered it with the sincerity of a man who believed every word. Brittany wanted to believe it too. He could see the hope in her eyes, the desperate desire for this to be real. What would the post-nup say? That we keep our finances separate. Your business remains yours. My inheritance remains mine. In the unlikely event of divorce, we each walk away with what we brought to the marriage. Fair and simple. That seems one-sided. Your inheritance is worth millions. And your business is worth millions too, potentially. You've been working so hard to build it. Carol squeezed her hand. This just protects us both. If you're uncomfortable, we don't have to do it. But I thought it made sense given Sean's accusations. Brittany was quiet, and Carol could almost hear her mind working through the angles. If she refused, it would look suspicious. If she agreed, she'd be signing away her claim to the inheritance. But Sean had panicked, had told her to deny everything and act normal. Okay, she finally said. If it makes you feel better, I'll sign it. Thank you. Carol raised his wine glass. To protecting our family. They clinked glasses. Brittany drank deeply. She didn't notice that Carol barely touched his wine. Over dinner, she tried to act normal, but Carol could see the cracks. The forced laughter. The way her hand kept returning to her stomach in an unconscious tell. The glances at her phone, probably waiting for Sean to tell her what to do next. How's the baby? Carol asked. Any morning sickness yet? A little. Nothing too bad. The lie came easily now. She'd been practicing. We should schedule an ultrasound. I want to see the baby. Maybe find out if it's a boy or girl. It's too early for that. Just to hear the heartbeat, then. I read that you can hear it as early as 6 weeks. Carol smiled at her. I'll come with you to your next appointment. I want to be involved in everything. The panic in her eyes was delicious. You don't have to do that. I know you're busy with work. I'll make time. For our baby? Of course I'll make time. Carol reached across the table and placed his hand on hers. We're in this together, right? Right, Brittany whispered. Together. After dinner, she excused herself to take a bath. As soon as the bathroom door closed, Tyler's voice came through Carol's earpiece. She's texting Sean. Wants to meet tomorrow. Says the situation is worse than we thought. Good, Carol murmured. Let them scramble. The next morning, Carol presented Brittany with the post-nuptial agreement. It was 10 pages of legal language that boiled down to one thing. In the event of divorce, they each left with what they'd entered the marriage with, plus anything they'd earned independently during the marriage. It was ironclad, drafted by Felix Lambert's firm, and completely enforceable. This seems really formal, Brittany said, flipping through the pages. It's just a precaution. Sign it, or don't. I love you either way. Carol kissed her forehead. But it would give me peace of mind. She signed it. Her hand shook slightly, but she signed every page, initialed every clause. Carol had Felix Lambert as a witness via video call, making it completely legal. There, Brittany said, setting down the pen. Feel better? Much better. Thank you. Carol collected the papers. I have to go meet with Felix about some other inheritance stuff. Will you be okay here? I'm actually going to meet Connie for lunch. Girl talk. Connie Mueller was Brittany's best friend since college. Carol knew for a fact that Brittany was actually meeting Sean at a hotel in Riverside, the same hotel from the photographs. Tyler had been tracking their communications. Have fun, Carol said, kissing her cheek. Love you. Love you too, she replied, and the words were hollow as a drum. Carol drove to Felix Lambert's office, but not to discuss the inheritance. He went to finalize phase 3 of his plan. The post-nup is solid, Felix confirmed, reviewing the signed document. She can't contest the inheritance in divorce proceedings now. But you know this will only protect your assets, right? It won't stop them from trying something else. I know, Carol said. That's why I need your help with something more creative. I want to file a complaint with the California Medical Board about a doctor who's been falsifying pregnancy records. Felix raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. I've documented every lie Brittany's told about her pregnancy, every fake symptom, every made-up doctor's appointment. I want to file a complaint claiming that a doctor has been helping her fake medical records for personal gain, insurance fraud perhaps. The investigation will reveal that there is no doctor, that she's been lying about everything. That's devious. She's faking a pregnancy to manipulate me. I think devious is appropriate. The medical board takes fraud seriously. If they investigate and find she's been lying, it becomes part of the public record. Exactly. And once it's public, I file for divorce on grounds of fraud. The post-nup protects my assets, and her reputation is destroyed. Carol leaned forward. But I need one more thing. I need proof of the affair that's admissible in court. Tyler's surveillance recordings won't work. California is a two-party consent state for recordings. You can record conversations you're part of, but recording Brittany and Sean without their knowledge is illegal. I'm not planning to use those recordings in court. I'm planning to use them for leverage. Carol pulled out his phone and showed Felix a series of photos. Tyler managed to get these from the hotel security cameras. Public space, no expectation of privacy. Brittany and Sean entering a hotel room together, multiple dates and times. That'll work for proving adultery in divorce proceedings. And there's one more thing. I want to offer them a deal. Felix sat back. What kind of deal? I want them both to sign confessions. Full admissions of the affair, the plan to defraud me, everything. In exchange, I won't go to the police about the Meridian situation or file fraud charges. They'll never agree to that. They will if they think it's their only way out. Carol smiled. Because the alternative is prison. Chapter 8. The trap closes. Carol's plan came together like a symphony reaching its crescendo. Each piece moved into place with precision, and he conducted it all with the calm of a man who'd already seen the ending. 3 days after Brittany signed the post-nup, Carol scheduled a doctor's appointment for them both. He told her it was just a routine checkup, something his health insurance offered for expecting parents. She tried to refuse, but he was insistent, loving, excited to see their baby on ultrasound. I don't think we need to, Brittany said the night before the appointment, her voice tight with barely concealed panic. Please? For me. Carol took her hands. I want to be involved in this. I want to be a good father. She couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. So she agreed, probably hoping she could fake her way through it somehow, or maybe planning to cause a scene and claim the stress made her miscarry. The appointment was at 10 a.m. Carol drove them to the medical building, chatting casually about baby names and nursery colors. Brittany's responses were monosyllabic, her hands clenched in her lap. They checked in at the OB/GYN office. The receptionist asked for Brittany's insurance information and previous medical records. Brittany fumbled through her purse, claiming she forgot the documents at home. That's okay, the nurse said kindly. We can look you up in the system. You said your primary care doctor referred you. Actually, Carol said, this is our first appointment. We wanted a fresh start with a new doctor. The examination room was small and clinical. Brittany sat on the paper-covered table, her face pale. The doctor, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chun, came in with a warm smile and a tablet. So, first prenatal visit. How exciting. How far along are you? About 6 weeks, Brittany said quietly. And you confirmed the pregnancy with a home test? Yes. Multiple tests. Great. Let's do an ultrasound and see if we can hear that heartbeat. Dr. Chen set up the machine, squeezing gel onto Brittany's exposed stomach. This might be a little cold. Carol watched Brittany's face as the doctor moved the ultrasound wand across her abdomen. Watched her eyes fill with tears. Watched her hand grip the table edge until her knuckles went white. The monitor showed nothing. No fetus. No heartbeat. Just the normal anatomy of a non-pregnant woman. Dr. Chen's smile faded. She checked again, adjusting the wand, looking from different angles. I'm not seeing anything here. Sometimes it's too early, or the dates are off. Let me check your HCG levels with a blood test. I don't need a blood test, Brittany said suddenly. I think I might have miscarried. The room went silent. Dr. Chen set down the wand. When did this happen? Last night. I was bleeding. I didn't want to worry Carol. Brittany was crying now, and they looked like real tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Carol played his part perfectly. Shock. Grief. He pulled Brittany into his arms as she sobbed against his chest. Why didn't you tell me? We could have come to the hospital. I didn't want to believe it was happening, Brittany cried. I'm sorry. Dr. Chen was professional and compassionate. She explained miscarriage statistics, offered counseling resources, suggested a follow-up appointment. Through it all, Carol held his wife and said the right things, while inside, his mind was 3 steps ahead, already moving to the next phase. They drove home in silence. Brittany stared out the window, tears streaming down her face. Whether from relief or genuine emotion, Carol couldn't tell and didn't care. We'll try again, he said, parking in their driveway. When you're ready. We have time. I need to be alone for a while, Brittany said, her voice hollow. I'm going to stay with Connie for a few days. Of course. Whatever you need. Carol watched her go inside, watched her pack a bag with shaking hands, watched her drive away in her Lexus. As soon as she was gone, he called Donna. She's running, he said. She'll go to Sean. Follow her. Already on it, Donna replied. She just pulled into the Riverside Hotel parking garage. Sean's car is already here. Perfect. Execute Phase 4. An hour later, 2 detectives from the Rosewood Police Department knocked on Carol's door. He invited them in, offered coffee, played the concerned husband perfectly. We received a complaint about insurance fraud, Detective Morris Morgan said, specifically about falsified pregnancy records. Your wife's name came up in the investigation. My wife? That's impossible. She just miscarried today. Carol showed them the discharge papers from Dr. Chen's office. It's been devastating. Detective Morgan exchanged a glance with his partner, Detective Edgar Woodward. Mr. Anderson, according to the blood test Dr. Chen ran, your wife has never been pregnant. Her HCG levels are 0. She's not miscarrying. She was never carrying a child in the first place. Carol let the shock show on his face. Let the realization dawn slowly. What are you saying? We're saying your wife has been lying to you. And if she's filed any insurance claims or received any financial benefit from this fake pregnancy, that's fraud. I don't understand. Why would she do this? That's what we'd like to know. Detective Woodward pulled out a notepad. Has your wife come into any significant money recently? Any life insurance policies? Any financial agreements that would benefit her if you believed she was pregnant? I inherited some money recently. We signed a post-nuptial agreement to protect both our assets. Carol's voice shook, not with emotion, but with the effort of containing his satisfaction. She knew about the inheritance before she told me about the pregnancy. The detectives took notes, asked more questions, told him they need to speak with Brittany. Carol gave them her phone number and told them she was staying with a friend, gave them Connie's address, even though he knew she was at a hotel with Sean. After the detectives left, Carol made one more call. Felix, it's time. Send them the offer. The offer arrived at the Riverside Hotel via courier at 8 p.m. Carol knew because Tyler was still monitoring everything. The package contained 2 identical documents, full confessions of the affair, the plot to defraud Carol, and every detail of their scheme. At the bottom of each was a signature line and a simple note. Sign these and I won't press charges. Refuse, and I'll make sure you both go to prison. You have 24 hours to decide. Carol. Tyler patched through their phone conversation that night. He's bluffing, Sean said. He can't prove fraud. The pregnancy thing is her word against doctors. There are no doctors, Sean. I never saw a doctor. I bought fake test results online. Brittany's voice was hysterical. And he has those recordings from your meeting with him. You confess to everything. Those recordings aren't admissible in court, but they can ruin us. If he leaks them, if anyone sees them, we're done. My business is already failing. If clients find out I'm a fraud, I'll never work again. So what do you want to do? Sign his confession and admit to everything. I want to disappear. I want to go somewhere he can't find us. With what money? You're broke, and I'm leveraged up to my eyeballs in that Meridian deal. If the FBI investigates, I'm fucked. They argued for another 20 minutes. Finally, Brittany broke. I'm signing it. I can't go to jail, Sean. I can't. You signed that, you're admitting to fraud. He'll use it against you in divorce court. If I don't sign it, I'll go to prison. At least if I sign, I walk away free. A pause. I'm done. I'm signing it, and I'm leaving California. You do whatever you want. Carol listened to his father try to convince his wife not to confess, listened to the desperation in both their voices, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The confessions arrived at Felix Lambert's office the next morning, both signed and notarized. Brittany had signed hers at 3 a.m. Sean had held out until 7 a.m., but eventually caved. Carol read them in Felix's office, the physical proof of their betrayal in black and white. I, Brittany Hagen Anderson, confess that I entered into a marriage with Carol Anderson with the intent to defraud him. I, Sean Robert Bishop, confess that I conspired with Brittany Anderson to defraud my biological son. Every detail was there. The plan, the fake pregnancy, the affair, all of it documented and signed. What happens now? Felix asked. Now, Carol folded the confessions carefully. Now I file for divorce, with these confessions as evidence of adultery and fraud. The postnup protects my assets. They both leave with nothing. And the criminal charges? I keep my word. No charges, no police involvement. They signed the confessions. That's punishment enough. They admitted to the world what they really are. That's more mercy than they deserve. Mercy, Carol smiled. Felix, I'm not being merciful. I'm being strategic. If I send them to prison, they become victims. This way, they just become cautionary tales. Sean loses his reputation, his business relationships. Brittany becomes known as the woman who faked a pregnancy to steal money. They'll never recover from this. Scorched earth, Felix murmured. Exactly. Chapter 9, New Foundations. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Thanks to the post-nuptial agreement and Brittany's signed confession, the proceedings were swift and decidedly one-sided. Brittany left the marriage with exactly what she'd brought to it: debt, a failing business, and a reputation in tatters. The confession had leaked. Carol never asked Tyler how, but suddenly copies were making the rounds in Rosewood's business circles. Brittany's marketing firm lost every client within a month. She declared bankruptcy and moved to Arizona, where Carol heard she was working retail under her maiden name. Sean's fate was more dramatic. The confession revealed his involvement with Meridian Pharmaceuticals, which prompted an FBI investigation into the Medicare fraud case. While Carol kept his word and didn't file charges, the FBI didn't need his help once they started digging. Sean was indicted 6 months after signing the confession. His trial made headlines. Bishop's strategic solutions collapsed. His reputation in business circles was destroyed. The jury found him guilty on 8 counts of fraud, and he was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Carol attended the sentencing. He sat in the back of the courtroom and watched his biological father be led away in handcuffs. Their eyes met for just a moment, and Carol saw what he'd expected to see. Rage, yes, but also something deeper. Defeat. The recognition that he'd underestimated his son, and that error had cost him everything. Carol felt nothing watching him go. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just the cold certainty that justice had been served. 6 months after the divorce, Carol stood in the offices of Adams Consulting Group, his late mother's company, now his. He'd restructured it, brought in new management, expanded into markets Geraldine had never explored. The company was thriving under his leadership, growing beyond even Geraldine's ambitions. Mr. Anderson, his assistant, Jenny Martin, poked her head into his office. Your 3 o'clock is here. Send her in. Donna Carpenter entered with her usual no-nonsense efficiency. She'd become more than just an investigator. She was now head of security for Adams Consulting Group, using her skills to protect the company and its interests. Quarterly security report, she said, dropping a folder on his desk. No threats, no attempts at corporate espionage. We're clean. Good. Carol reviewed the report briefly. How are the new surveillance protocols working? Like a charm. Nobody's getting in or out with company secrets on my watch. Donna paused. You know, Geraldine would be proud of what you've done here. You've honored her legacy. I'm trying to. More than trying. You succeeded. Donna stood to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. With Brittany and Sean. Some people think you went too far, but I disagree. They made their choices. You just made sure they faced the consequences. After she left, Carol turned his chair to look out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. Rosewood spread out in the afternoon sunlight. The same city where a month ago, he'd paid $40 for a stranger's groceries and set in motion a chain of events that had revealed the truth about his life. His phone buzzed. Tyler, beers tonight? Celebrating your 1-year anniversary of freedom. Carol smiled and typed back. Absolutely. 7 p.m. at Murphy's? It's a date. Proud of you, man. You survived the worst and came out stronger. That night, Carol sat across from Tyler at Murphy's pub, a beer in hand, and realized that Tyler was right. He had survived. More than that, he'd won. You ever regret it? Tyler asked. Going after them the way you did? Carol considered the question. Did he regret destroying his wife's life? Sending his father to prison? Taking everything from the 2 people who'd tried to take everything from him? No, he said finally. They made a choice to betray me. To use me. They thought I was weak, that I'd never figure it out, that even if I did, I'd be too damaged to fight back. They were wrong. You're a hard man to fool now. I learned from the best. Carol raised his glass. To Geraldine Adams, the mother I never knew, who loved me enough to give me the truth. They drank to that. As the evening wore on and the conversation turned to lighter topics, Carol found himself thinking about the future. The inheritance had given him wealth and power, yes, but more importantly, it had given him clarity. He knew who he was now. Not Robert and Patricia Anderson's distant son, not Sean Bishop's abandoned mistake, but Geraldine Adams' legacy. A week later, Carol sat in Felix Lambert's office for what he hoped would be their last major legal meeting for a while. I want to establish a foundation, Carol said. The Geraldine Adams Foundation. It'll provide support for single mothers, especially young women who are considering giving their children up for adoption. Felix's eyes softened. She would have loved that. I'm also setting up scholarships for kids in foster care and adoption programs. Make sure they have the opportunities one had, but with more support and less. Carol paused, searching for the word. Isolation. Felix offered gently. Exactly. They worked out the details, funding levels, board structure, grant criteria. Carol would personally oversee the foundation's operations, at least for the first few years. You're doing something good here, Felix said as they finalized the paperwork. Turning your pain into purpose. That's rare. Geraldine did the same thing. She built a company out of her regret and love. I'm just following her example. As Carol left Felix's office that afternoon, he passed a young woman in the lobby, struggling with a stroller and an armful of papers. He held the door for her, and she smiled gratefully. Thank you, she said. You're very kind. Carol smiled back. My mother taught me well. It wasn't a lie. Geraldine had taught him, even from a distance. She'd taught him that love could survive separation, that kindness was worth $40 and so much more, and that sometimes the truth was the most valuable inheritance of all. 6 months later, the Geraldine Adams Foundation opened its doors. The first grant went to a 17-year-old girl facing an unplanned pregnancy, terrified and alone. Carol met with her personally, offered her resources, counseling, and choices, whatever she needed to make the decision that was right for her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "You don't even know me." "Because someone should have done this for my mother," Carol said. "And because everyone deserves kindness when they need it most." Standing in the Foundation's office, surrounded by staff members dedicated to helping others, Carol Anderson realized something profound. Brittany and Sean had tried to take everything from him, but in the end, they'd given him something invaluable. They'd forced him to become the man Geraldine had hoped he'd be: strong, decisive, uncompromising in his values, and absolutely unwilling to be anyone's victim. He thought about the grocery store line, about $40 that had changed everything, about the kindness of a dying woman who'd never stopped being his mother, about justice served and lessons learned. His phone buzzed with a message from Donna. Just saw the news. Sean's appeal was denied. He's staying in prison for the full 12 years. Carol looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. He didn't need to think about Sean anymore. That chapter was closed. He had more important work to do. Building something that honored Geraldine's memory, helping others who faced the same impossible choices she'd faced, and living a life that proved kindness wasn't weakness. It was strength. The kind of strength that paid for a stranger's groceries. The kind of strength that faced betrayal and came out victorious. The kind of strength that turned inheritance into legacy and pain into purpose. Carol Anderson walked out of the Foundation's office that evening as the sun set over Rosewood, and for the first time in his life, he felt completely at peace with who he was and where he'd come from. He was his mother's son, both mothers in their own way, and that was enough. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.